Most of us imagine death as something far away, predictable, even explainable, but sometimes it shows up where you'd least expect it. These are 5 true stories of freak accidents and bizarre deaths where ordinary moments became fatal in ways no one saw coming. Let's begin. Story 1. Darren Hickey was a well-liked man from Lancashire, England. A former prison officer turned wedding planner, he was known for being calm, friendly, and professional. Darren, 51, had recovered from a stroke that left him struggling to walk and talk 7 years before his death. On this particular day, he was leaving Ridgemont House, the wedding venue he managed in Chorley, Lancashire, when one of the chefs asked him to try a freshly made fish cake straight from the oven. It was hot, scalding even, but Darren took a bite anyway. He immediately felt pain in his throat but assumed it was a simple burn. Over the next few hours, his condition worsened. His throat began to swell, something he couldn't see or fully understand. By the time he realized he couldn't breathe properly, it was too late. He collapsed at home. Doctors later said the burn had caused his throat tissues to inflame and swell, slowly cutting off his airway. The same kind of internal injury seen in house fire victims. A single bite of food ended his life within 24 hours. Story 2. Sam Ballard. It was just a silly dare among teenage boys. What could it hurt to eat a small slug? So Australian teenager Sam Ballard grabbed the slimy creature and gulped it down. He had no idea that the slug carried a potentially deadly worm that would put him into a coma that lasted more than a year, paralyze his body, and ultimately take his life. After downing the slug, Sam became weak and complained of severe pain in his legs, according to The Sunday Project. Sam's mother, Katie Ballard, told the news show that at first they worried he might have multiple sclerosis, which had afflicted her husband, but doctors said no, that wasn't the cause. Then Sam turned to his mother and told her he had eaten a slug, and I went, "No, no one gets sick from that," Katie Ballard said. Soon, however, doctors told them otherwise. Sam had developed rat lungworm disease from the infected slug, changing his life forever. Rat lungworm disease is caused by a parasitic worm called Angiostrongylis cantonensis. As the name suggests, the parasite lodges in the lungs of rats and is later excreted in feces. Along comes a slug, snail, freshwater crab, shrimp, prawn, or frog, and either eats the rat dung or the parasite works its way into the creature infecting it. Fish, however, do not spread the parasite. Humans can be infected if they eat the raw or undercooked contaminated animals or vegetables carrying unseen snails or slugs that have not been thoroughly washed. Unlike in rats, the worm's life cycle is not completed in a human, so instead of passing through the digestive tract, the worm larvae can get lost, and it will go to the brain and it'll stay there, said Heather Stockdale Walden, an assistant professor in the Department of Infectious Diseases and Pathology at the University of Florida. The parasite is not passed from human to human. When it gets to the brain, you can have eosinophilic meningitis, Walden said, which is an inflammation of the membranes surrounding the brain and spinal cord. Symptoms can include headaches, nausea, vomiting, fever, and a stiff neck, the CDC said. Most cases of rat lungworm disease are typically mild, but in some cases, like Sam's, the disease can cause catastrophic damage. Soon after the diagnosis, Sam fell into a coma, where he remained for 420 days, Ballard said in the Australian news report. He woke up paralyzed, unable to eat without a tube or move without intense effort. He required 24-hour care, 7 days a week. But the disease didn't affect his mental faculties, his family and friends said. "He's in there, 100%, Galvin told the Sunday Project. "I apologized to Sam about everything that happened that night in the backyard, and he just started bawling his eyes out. I know he's there." Sam passed away on a Friday morning in November of 2018 at Hornsby Hospital, not far from where he grew up, surrounded by 20 of those he most loved in the world, she wrote. "Katie tells me the room was so full of love," Wilkinson said. One of his friends there in the room continued, "He had his voice and he said, 'I love you' several times to Katie." Story 3. Elizabeth Isherwood, known as Mary, a 60-year-old woman from Wolverhampton, near Birmingham in England, accidentally walked into an airing cupboard, which is a common room in British homes used to dry clothes. She mistook the door for the bathroom, and when it locked behind her, did everything she could to get out, include breaking down a pipe and try to break down a wall to free herself. But she died from hypothermia after getting covered in water. Her devastated family say that other guests reported hearing banging at the Plas Talgarth holiday complex, a timeshare near Machynlleth in Wales, for more than 24 hours. Unfortunately, they assumed there was maintenance being done to the property, and nobody searched Miss Isherwood's room. Her family are now considering taking legal action against Plas Talgarth. It was only when water started to leak from the property a week later that staff found her locked in the airing cupboard. Her devastated son, Craig, 32, and ex-husband, Clive, revealed that Mary had been staying at the timeshare, which the family co-owned by herself, for a week. Mary, 60, had gone for a drink with her ex-husband on Friday evening, before going to stay at the property, which the whole family often used to stay in together. "We think she arrived there early on the Saturday, had gone for a swim, and then gone back to the room after she'd checked in. On her way back to bed, her family believe Mary mistook the door to an airing cupboard as the door back into her bedroom and entered without realizing where she was going. When the door closed behind her, Mary then attempted to leave the cupboard, but the door handle fell off, trapping her inside. It was revealed that she pulled the copper piping and a piece was broken off. This was used to try initially to open the door because there were marks on the door, but also used to try and break a hole through the wall of the airing cupboard, officials said. She managed to make a hole in the wall and was inches from freedom. Unfortunately, on the other side of the wall was a picture, an investigator said. Meanwhile, the burst plumbing sprayed cold water into the confined space, where she became drenched and eventually succumbed to hypothermia, he said. Elizabeth Isherwood's son is suing the resort company, McDonald Resorts, for negligence. The legal action is not about the compensation, because how can you put a value on a life? It is about the fact that this should never have happened. At the time of posting this video, the results of the case are unclear. Story 4. Disneyland 1966. Thomas Guy Cleveland was just 19 when he made a decision that would cost him his life. In June of 1966, he tried to sneak into Disneyland after hours to avoid the ticket fee. His plan? Climb the perimeter fence and walk along the monorail track to enter the park undetected. Security spotted him and shouted warnings. They told him to get off the track, but Thomas didn't realize how fast the monorail approached. He ignored the warnings and continued on the track. Seconds later, the train came speeding down the rail. He climbed down onto a fiberglass canopy beneath the track, but the clearance wasn't enough, and the oncoming train struck and killed him, dragging his body 30 to 40 feet down the track. There were no lawsuits filed in connection with this incident, according to damfirm.com. For this young man, an attempt at a free entry into the happiest place on earth turned into a horrifying death scene. Story 5. It was opening day at the Ohio State Fair, July 26, 2017. Families filled the fairgrounds, laughter rose above the roar of rides, and the fireball was swinging high as it had hundreds of times before. Then, without warning, it happened. A catastrophic failure. A section of the ride, a gondola carrying 4 people, broke free mid-swing. It launched riders through the air. 18-year-old Tyler Jarrell was killed instantly. 7 others were injured, some critically. Dozens of bystanders captured the chaos that followed. In just under 2 minutes, a sequence of over 60 photos showed panic erupting, people running, children crying, troopers sprinting toward the wreckage. The ride continued swinging even after the gondola tore away. The remaining passengers sat trapped, stunned, still locked into their seats. Operators stood motionless. No immediate rescue efforts began. Later, investigators would uncover the cause: a hidden crack in the steel arm, corrosion that had eaten through the ride's core over time. The fracture stretched across the beam, invisible until it gave way. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the state and beyond. Tyler's death sparked a movement. His family, along with survivors like Keziah Lewis, fought for stronger safety laws. A year later, Tyler's Law was passed, tightening inspection regulations for amusement rides across Ohio. In 2024, Keziah Lewis was awarded $20 million in damages, but no settlement can undo what happened that day, when a ride meant to thrill became a scene of horror. This was not just an accident, it was a preventable disaster and a chilling reminder that even the most routine joys can turn deadly in a moment. None of these people expected to die the way they did. These weren't stunts, they weren't reckless thrill seekers. Most of them were just living life until something completely ordinary turned catastrophic. Sometimes death doesn't make sense. Sometimes it hides in the most unexpected places. A bite of food, a hotel closet, or the seat of your favorite amusement park ride. Thanks for watching. If these stories were interesting to you, then please like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life tales that are stranger than fiction. Until next time, please stay safe out there, and as always, stay curious.